Evening, guys. Hello. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to get straight to it today. So we've done webinars in the past. We've talked about um, getting a quick start in your automation. Using CodeGen tools, accelerators, recorders. In this case, our Cucumber test recorder to go from having no code to having a basic flow together in a short space of time. What I want to do today is show you how you get to that next step. Right. So if you are working in an agile delivery team and you want to start writing dry and low maintenance code, then you're going to have to start to understand where you go with these first steps in refactoring that. All right, so as I record this first test, we'll use a basic e-commerce website, but as I record this first test, the recorder is going to allow me to, at the very least, specify the pages of the application within which I'm recording my journey. All right, what it's not going to do is start to allow me to create page-based methods. All right, and that's really where this idea of the page object model is going to start. The other thing I'm going to do as part of this is look at a more sensible naming convention for some of my elements. So I'm going to record my flow. We're using TestEvolve Spark to do this. We're using Ruby 3.1.4. We're using Selenium 4 with that. Okay. And Cucumber 8, I believe. So yeah, we'll be recording a test. We'll create some features, scenarios with unique to Cucumber, of course. It will have a step definition. And then we'll start to look at these page classes. All right. So it's all with the idea of taking that next step, becoming a little bit more mature in your understanding of the page object model and being able to contribute more meaningfully to a reusable, low maintenance code base as part of an automation team. All right, so we'll look at some of our kind of automation best practices as we do that. So we'll start to refactor our code. We'll look at these page-based or large feature-based methods. We'll look at a more sensible naming convention for some of our elements. We'll then look at some assertion-based methods. And then finally, we'll look at iterative or example-driven testing with this end-to-end example. So we'll look at how we can start running that test with multiple different data sets. So data coming in and being used at various different parts of the journey, either to actually navigate the application or to make should we say, product-based assertions on this e-commerce website. Okay, so that's the intention. Let's get to it. Let's build our first test out with the Cucumber recorder. Okay, I've got TestEvolve Flare here. I've already got a Ruby project open and ready to work with. So let's open that up. Now I've got a particular website in mind that I'm going to work through. The idea with that is to give us plenty of things to navigate, assertions to make, and opportunities for kind of data driving the test afterwards. Okay, so in Flare, I'll just come to the develop module. Flare gives me a Cucumber test recorder, or CodeGen if you like, so I can build my features, scenarios, steps directly from Flare, and it's going to write them to my file system. Okay, so we'll call this an e-commerce purchase. We shall say, and then let's say customer can add product to cart and begin checkout. Okay, cool. So let's keep it real simple. So given I go to the e-commerce website, we then say when I search for a musical instrument and I add it to my basket, then I can begin my checkout, because as much as I'd like to, I'm not going to be able to afford to complete this particular purchase. But that's cool. You get the idea. So these are undefined steps at the moment because we haven't recorded any code. So let's click on the first one. What I've got to do as I go along now, I've got to break out my recorded interactions with the website. I've got to split them between the given, when, and then steps. But as I'm going along as well, Flare is also going to give me the ability to create pages in my recorded automation code that from a page object model perspective would mimic the pages in the application under test. So by that I mean a home page, for example, a results listing page, for example, a product details page, for example, some kind of checkout form. All right, these kind of pages that are common to the e-commerce website, I'm going to represent with pages in my automation project as well. All right, so let's start this recording process. All right, so I'm going to start record. I don't have a page yet, so we'll come on to that in a second. So let's overtype this. So I'm going to go to pmtonline.co.uk. I'm going there because they sell nice guitars and I like nice guitars. So let's do that. It's going to record that journey. Now, that's all I need to do in the first step, in the given step. That's the going to the e-commerce website. So I'm going to click into my when step. This is all about my search. So there's a few things I've got to do here. I want to slow down just a little bit because I want to make sure I get this right. So first of all, I am going to create a representative page here. This is quite simply going to be my home page. So as I do that, it's going to create my file name, my methods, my classes within the project. So create page. All right, so everything I do on that page now is going to be registered to the home page. The thing that I'm going to do is to search for a product. So we'll call that a Gibson Les Paul. I'm just going to click on search. I'm not going to use the suggested entries. Okay, so that's my search. I've got a bunch of things I do before I add it to basket, so I'm not quite there yet. However, I am on a new page. You can see that by the fact it's flashing. So we'll call this a results listings page, and we'll create that. So anything I do on this page now is going to be written to this particular results listings page in the project. All right, so let's assert on this title here to tell me that it's kind of returned the correct search results. So we do that. What else should we do? Let's have a look. I think at that point, I'm just going to click on the first thumbnail. This is all still part of my when step at this page. Now, again, it's flashing because I'm on a new page. Now, this is what we call a product detail page. So first thing I'm going to do is mark that up. Product details page. Okay, let's create that page. Right, what do I want to do here? I want to do a couple of things. Again, I want to verify the correct page. So I'm going to do an assertion, right click, verify, check for presence up there. That's the breadcrumb. I also want to assert on the title over here. Let's do that. Make sure that's presence. That's 2 assertions. And you can see on the left it's actually referring to the pages that I've created in the project as well. Okay. Right, let's just look at my plan here. So, yeah, okay. I'm going to increment the counter because we'll do something with that in the future. Still on the same page for now, so let's just move that up to 1. All right, so I've incremented my counter. We've also got down here, we've got a stock checker. So I think I will add my postcode and check some stock. Still on the same page. So if I go postcode SS1 to XU, let's click on check stock. Still on the same page. This is just a modal. SS1 is a Southend postcode, so I'm going to right click and assert that this is present here. I'm then going to close that modal. Let's have a look. And then I think at that point I'm going to add to basket. So everything I've just been doing has been, we've actually covered 1, 2, 3 pages there of the application within the automation project, but just within one of our Cucumber or our BDD steps. All right, so now I'm going to click on my when I add it to my basket step. And I will add it to my basket. I think it's actually got something in my basket from the last time I looked at this website, so that's why it's actually got 3. But that's all right. I can't even afford one of them, so there we go. So I'm in my and step at this point. All right, I've added it to the basket. I'm going to down count that to 1. I'm going to click on update, and that thankfully has adjusted the price, $2,399. I'm going to do an assertion on the amount because I just want to capture that as an element, because that then becomes something I can extract the text of, or the value of, later down the line and do something with potentially. So let's verify that that is present. Okay, let's just check my plan, and then we're going to proceed to checkout. But before I do that, I'm going to click on my then step, because I'm now in my final step of my Cucumber, my BDD scenario. I want the remainder of my code to be incorporated in this then step. I'm going to go proceed to checkout. Cool. Let's let that finish loading. All right, now you can see it's flashing blue again up here, which means it's registering a new page. So let's just see, what are we best to call this? This is, technically it's looking at this is our shipping page. All right, now I haven't got to worry about changing the given when thens any further. That's now taken care of. So let's just set up this page. We'll call this the shipping page. We'll create that page. Good. Now I think the first thing I'm going to want to do here is just assert that this your details section is present. So we'll do that. And I will also, I think, just assert that this order summary section is present. I've got different options there. I can check that it exists in the DOM, that it's present, or purely that it's visible as well. So there are variations on a theme there, but all accessible in the same way. Okay, let's do that. So all of these currently writing to the then step, and now you see reference to our new shipping page as well. Okay, so after those assertions, let's start proceeding through this shipping form now. So I'm just going to click into my email field. Let's add an email there. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to come down. Let's start putting in some shipping details here. So new company. Number 1 Baker Street. We'll do this for now. Of course, we're not going to complete this and send it, but for now that will be absolutely fine. I could overtype these, but I shall go with those for now. There's a general rule of thumb, I think, that says when you're recording a test, and this, this goes back to years ago with tools like Quick Test Pro, and record kind of interaction with as many fields as you expect to want to interact with in the future. So if you need your test to be able to introduce variants for county and city and postcode, for example, then probably now is the best place to do them. But for now, this is fine. So put my phone number in, and as we scroll down, we have some delivery options here as well. So let's just click on the first one there. And again, just on the left-hand side, we're all in the same then step at the moment. So you can see how it's getting quite unwieldy, quite cumbersome, and this is where the idea of page-based methods will come into play. So I've picked the first option there. Let's do an assertion on this guy down here. Make sure that button is present. and then we'll click on proceed to payment. All right, it takes us onto kind of the payment page. We're on the shipping. We're now onto the payment page. So I've got my blue ticker flashing again. It's doing that under the hood because it detects a different URL essentially. So what's quite nice about this is whenever you return to a URL that's already been recorded, it already understands that you might have allocated that URL to a page. Right, so previously, if I went back now, it would see that URL and it would know that in my automation project, that was my shipping page. So I'm going to do something similar for this one here. We'll call this our payment page. Okay. So let's have a look. So we clicked on proceed to payment. Let's add a couple more assertions. So we will assert the billing details section. Make sure that's present. And again, whilst it's rolling off the page, these still doing this under the hood here. Okay. Again, you see reference to our new page there, the payment page. We've moved from shipping to payment. And then what else? Let's also assert. We'll do a placeholder for the address section in general. I'm going to take the first line of the address, Baker Street. You'll see how we have to amend this in the future, but it does give us a placeholder, kind of anchor within the page to latch onto and to expand upon, which we'll do in our refactoring. So let's just check that that is present. So that's on our address. Now let's a couple more assertions. Let's add here the order summary section. So let's do verify present. Let's have a look at the order total. We'll do the total up here because that will be unaffected by shipping or VAT. So we'll take this top value here. We'll verify that that is present. Again, these are all placeholders right now, and I'm going to improve upon these. And a couple of things I want to check maybe once more: the product name. And what else should we see? Let's just check the quantity because we did actually, we reduced that, didn't we? So let's put a placeholder there. Okay, and again, all of these being recorded as we go along. Right, we will assert the, let's have a look. We'll assert the ship to section. We'll verify that that's present. And I think, let's have a look. Let's check the shipping methods section as well. And for a good test, we'll make sure that these two edit buttons are both present. And the shipping method edit button as well. Cool. All right. So finally, I think, and it's getting towards the end of my flow here, because as much as I'd love to go out and buy this now, I definitely can't. I'll get in a lot of trouble. We shall go, finally, we'll click on here. That's going to register. I'm definitely not putting any details in for now, but as a final, as a closure to our test, we will assert that the place order button, let's bring that up a bit. We will assert that the place order button is present. Cool. Let's just have a quick skim down here. Interesting. So that radio button, it's got reference to Braintree there. No idea what that means at this stage, but we'll certainly look into that. So there we have it. I think that's as much as our journey we're going to record. So I'm going to cancel the recording at this stage. So I'll stop that recording. I can collapse this down. And that is my recorded test for now. We'll dig in now and start looking at where we would begin to refactor this. Okay, so we're now actually looking at some of the code that was generated for us by the TestEvolve Flare Cucumber recorder, if you like. Okay, so we've done it to a single step definition at the moment. and you see essentially we have our given step, our when step, our and step, and our then step. You'll recall that we were building and effectively working with pages within the recorder that mimicked the pages of the application under test. So that's kind of one of the first fundamentals of the page object model. But other than that, what's effectively happened is that we have elements like the search text field, as the recorder has called it, that sat on the home page of the application, and we call .click on that. But so we have elements that are still referred to within these step definitions in a sequence, right? So for example, we have a kind of a .click, we have a set, and then we have a search submit here. So whilst you can look at this code within a step definition here, it's a little bit unwieldy, right? It's a little bit too verbose, and we are still operating at the UI level effectively, even though we have reference to pages and distinct page objects, which is a good start. But yeah, the obvious way to start smartening this up is the idea now of using methods within these page classes. All right, so just as a quick recap, this was the feature that we built. That we built within the recorder. That's the kind of the top layer, or the business facing layer of the framework, if you like. We then have our middle layer, which is unique to Cucumber. This is the step definition layer. But as we created these pages, we were actually the recorder was building these pages within our file system for us. All right, so we have a home page here. So in essence, it does a couple of things. It creates and records elements to the home page. So here's one that you just saw. So this was homepage.search text field. So this was a text field. It had an ID of search. All right, so that's probably one that we won't change, to be honest. But what it was also doing, as I mentioned, it's looking at the URL that you're currently on, and it assigns that to a page as well, so that if any point in your recording journey you came back to that page, it would know where you were and what you previously called that page. These are defaults within the project, but the new ones we created, you'll remember we recorded a payment page, we had a product details page, we had a results listings page, and we had a shipping page. So I mean, across those we've probably worked with 30-40 different elements, something like that. Anyhow, all right, let's get to refactoring. So there's a particular workflow that I like to go through. So I'm going to come back to the step definition file. And it kind of encapsulates everything, right? It's all of our Cucumber steps, our BDD steps, and the code that was recorded. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to start to just break these. What I've got here as well, just as I was going through and recording my journey, I just made a brief note of what it was I was doing. It's always a good thing to do when you're building out an automated test for the first time. So you can always just come back and see where, what your flow of events actually look like. So the first thing I'm going to do here is to start separating these blocks of code within the step defs themselves into things or parts of a process I knew were happening at the time. All right, so let's just go through and let's make a first pass at that. So the first thing we're doing is searching for a product and clicking search. So, well, obviously we've got the go to site first of all. So that's fine. We'll leave that there. That is the given step. I could write a helper method for a go to if I wanted that encapsulated test-evolve.browser. But in this case, I think that's fine. Right, so clearly we've got three things happening at the top here, which are search related. Okay, so that's going to cover off these guys here. After that, I've got an assertion on the results page and then a clicking of a thumbnail. So we've got an assertion here. We've got a thumbnail click. That is at the point at which we're going to move into a different page. So it's probably a good idea to look at the pages for some separation here as well. So these three are on the home page. This is on the results listings page, as was this. By the time I get down to here, I'm now onto the product details page. So that can be an immediate. I mean, we've got three conceivable splits there within the when step. All right, and as I'm doing this, I'm starting to think about, well, how could I take these 3 steps, these search related steps, and build them into a single method. So I started to design that method. So it's going to be on the home page. So let's have a look. Let's take this home page class here. So we're setting a search, and we're clicking the search submission. So we'll just call that search for a product. And we're going to be passing an argument with that. So we already see that we're passing an argument here, which was our search term. So we'll pass that here. And ultimately what I'm looking to do is to remove these and just build them into this single method. So it will read a lot more nicely. It'll be 1 line instead of 3. It's going to be homepage, search for product, Gibson Les Paul. So as I start to, I'm forward thinking, I'm designing these methods in the step definitions themselves, but as I now know that that's what it needs to look like, I can go into my page class and I can start to build these methods here. So I'm just going to that becomes my method. There'll be more, and I'll leave that. In fact, no, I'm going to pass that through as an argument. So I will just, I can just for now refer that. Let's call it product. That will be our argument. If I go back, it needs to consist of these 3 steps. So I'm just going to remove these. I'm going to cut them for now. And what I've now got is a click-through because I just defined that method. And what that method needs to do, I'm just going to paste these in here. That's fine. But because I am within this homepage class, obviously I'm just going to remove the direct reference to the class itself. It's not going to need those. Okay. So we've now got search text field dot click. We've got set a search term. Now we're passing this argument here. So rather than have this hard coded as it was within the recording of the test, I now just make that product. That's going to align with the argument that I'm passing through. So I've got dot click, dot set, and then this was the search submit or the magnifying glass. So of those 2 elements on the page, that's the one that I'm not a big fan of. So as I'm going through and doing this, I'm taking the opportunity to rename elements where necessary. So I'm just going to call that search submit. All right, I'll leave the actual definition as it is for now. But I just want my element to be renamed slightly more meaningfully. So I've got search text field click, search text field dot set product, search submit dot click. All right, might not be perfect, but that's good enough for now. And if I come back to the step definition, so I've removed those 3 and I've made it into 1. All right, so I'm going to move on a similar basis. So let's think about the results listing page now. So we're doing 2 things. We've got an assertion going on there. So we will look at an improved error message because the recorder's just going to give you a direct error message in response to the element itself, but we will have a better understanding of what that actually is. But I think, let's have a look. We've got 2 things. We're asserting that we land on the right page. So let's start with that. That could be a single line of code, but in a more referenceable method, if you like. So let's start to think about what that could be. I'm going to put that in here, results listings page, and we'll just put, let's have a look, base.present. What we're actually looking for there, we are asserting the heading for the results page. So let's just do something like verify results page. So we're just checking that we have indeed landed on that results page. But in the context of this step definition, if I've searched for a product and then verify a results page, it's probably going to be a little bit more meaningful than this line of code here. So following my process, I need to take that as my method. There's no arguments to be passed to it at this stage. I'm going to go into this page and I'm going to define that method. So there it is, verify results page. And the thing that it actually needs to do is this thing here. So let's take that. Let's step through here now, and I'll just drop that code into this specific method. And again, we're on the results listings page, so I don't need to have that, so I can remove that. So our element was based.present. Here is, that's effectively the header, right? So I'm going to call that for now. We may well redefine that. We'll have a look when we start debugging the test. I'll call that header. So if I've changed it there, that means I need to change it here. I know what it is I'm asserting for, so let's just make that into a better error message. Results listings page header was not present on the page before the timeout unless header dot present. All right, so that's fine. That's going to work. Now this was actually our thumbnail, our product thumbnail. We'll come to that in just a second because that's going to be our next step. All right, so these two have been refactored. We've got a search and we've got a verify results page. This here is, what are we doing? We are selecting a product effectively. So it's the first product, so maybe I declare a method for that. Select first product. So I'm going to need to build that method. It shows me it's underlined. It shows it can't find it. So if I go in here, it's going to be my second method on this page. Okay, so let's go back. So that's now defined. I can click through and it's going to encapsulate this here. So let's remove that. Step into here, into our method. Paste that in. Again, I'm on the page, so I don't need to directly reference the page class. And now it's going to say essentially product.click. So the recorder has captured it as this, as we can see. That's the name it's given it. The way in which it's located it is through an image. It's looking for an image with an alt tag of that. So that's probably okay. Again, we'll test it when we debug it, but I'd rather give it a better name. So I will just call this first underscore product. So I change it here as well. So first product dot click. All right. So when I then come back, I've taken, I don't know, 6-7 lines of code now, and we're now down to 3. So search, verify, select first product. Okay. Because I'm selecting that product, which was this bit here, this was clicking the first thumbnail, we now start to come into this part of the flow. So let's just look at what we've got. We've got 2 assertions back to back. So we've got an assertion on the breadcrumb. We've got an assertion on the product title. So again, that's kind of like our verify results page. So straight away, I'm going to maybe put another split here. This is based upon the product details page. So I'm just going to say verify PDP, which in e-commerce terms is the product details page. All right, so this will be a new method on the product details page. Click in our class, define this method in Ruby. Back out one more time, and it's those 2 assertions together that really form that verify PDP. So let's cut those, step back into this method, paste them in here, and again we're going to tidy this up. But first thing, I'm on the class, so I don't need that. I'm on the class, I don't need that. All right. And we've got 2 assertions back to back. They both have a message. They both refer to an element that exists on this page. There we go. That's right at the bottom there. Now, in that particular case, it's an XPath, which I'm not a big fan of, but we'll roll with that for now. But what I do have the power to change immediately is the naming, right? So I don't like these at all. But I know what I was doing, right? So I was asserting on the breadcrumb. So we'll change this. Let's just make sure it's the only one on the page. I can just do a find. Okay, there it is here. So I'm going to change this to be breadcrumb. And now I can say unless breadcrumb.present. So raise this error, and again I'll change it here. Right, breadcrumb. Breadcrumb was not present on the page before the timeout unless breadcrumb.present. Now this is quite simplistic stuff, right? But it just shows you the concept of creating a assertion-based method and then doing some refactoring to create that method in the first place, but also to tidy up our elements and our error messages as we go. The second thing we did after that was a product title. So if I find reference to this base element on the page, well, here it is. So in my world, as I'm the tester writing the test, I see that as the product title. Okay, so product underscore title, which means I now bring that down here. Product title was not present on the page before timeout unless, paste it in here, product title dot present. So that is now our verify PDP on the product details page. It's just an assertion method. That's all it's doing. It's not navigating, it's just raising 2 exceptions if they're not present. So that's our verify PDP. Excuse me. So you start to see bit by bit that this when step all of a sudden it starts to become a bit more readable. At this level, we like things to almost read like a manual testing script, if that makes sense. All right, I'm going to do a couple more here, and then I'm going to fast forward through them, and I'll show you the end result of the refactoring. But let's just focus on, let's try and group these ones together now. Let's see if we can deal with all of these. So let's just look at what we were doing. So I think we incremented the counter to 2. So before I added it to cart, I added I incremented my counter of that product to 2. Okay, and then you can see it here. I clicked in the postcode, enter postcode, click on stock check. Well, that's going to be click in postcode, enter postcode, click on stock check. So I've got an alignment between my my notes on what it was I did. So let's deal with those first of all. So we're still in the product details page at this moment. So what am I doing really? Let's think about this. I am adjusting the amount and then I'm checking stock. So I could combine those. It's probably too much. We'll do a separate one here. We'll do product details page dot set product amount. That'll be our method for this. So I need to create this guy here on the product details page. This will be a second method, def paste set product amount. And this is the thing that it's doing. I can see already that's going to need to change. It's clicking on an icon, but it's going to need to be something like setting the value to 2. So we'll come back to that, but let's take it out for now. I go into the set product amount. Let's paste that in there. Again, I'm on the class, so I don't need to reference that. It's going to be icon dot click. Now I know that icon now is actually the product. Let's call it counter. So I'm just refactoring the name of that element. I'll change it there. 100% that's going to need to change because just dot clicking. I don't think. Maybe because that could just be the plus button. So +1 to make it from 1 to 2. Maybe that's how that worked. We'll have a look at that. See how Selenium sees it. So we go back. That's the setting of the product amount. And then we've got three things. In fact, all of these I would say are now related to stock check. So I'm going to start fleshing out my method for that. So again, it's on the product details page. Now what are we doing? We are submitting a postcode. We're then entering the check. And then the thing we did here, we asserted that the expected town was at the top of the list for the postcode that we submitted. So I'm just going to, very simply, I'm just going to call this execute stock check. That's in essence the process that's being undertaken here. So let's go here. Now our third method on this class. Okay. For now, I'm just going to lift all of those. So let's cut those. Go into our execute stock check. I'm just going to start by pasting them in there. Again, first thing I'm going to do is remove direct reference to the class because I'm on that class, so that doesn't need to be there. Even within the error as well here, or the assertion, that can go. that can go. Okay, so that would now be fine, but I'm not happy. I've got some arguments to think about there, and I'm also not happy with some of the elements. But if I just go back a second, so we've just, at the step definition layer, we've just refactored our entire when step. Okay, so that now looks like homepage, search for a product, which we're passing through an argument. If I really wanted to add just some visual clarity, I can just space these out by page. So we've then got results, listings page, verify the results page, same page, select the first product. We're then onto the product details page, of which I've got a verification that we're on that page, verify PDP or product details page. Same page, set the product amount, same page, then execute a stock check. So we've created here a bunch of methods. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, there's 6. So across 1, 2, 3 pages, we've created 6 methods as part of our refactoring so far. So I'm just going to come back into this final one. We'll finish this one off, and then we will fast forward somewhat. So let's just look at some of these elements. So we dealt with this guy, that's fine. You know, this is okay. It tells me what it is. I'll leave that for now. It's a little long, but in the same field, we're then setting a value. So actually, maybe what I want to do here is pass through a postcode argument, and that way I'll replace this with the thing that I passed through when I call this method. So I can click through here and it'll go back to the only place that it's used right now. So I have to pass this with an argument, which is going to be ss1 space 2xu, in the same way we did it up here. Ruby actually prefers single quotes as well. Let's do that. All right, so I'm passing that through at the step def. Ultimately, what I'm going to show you how to do is to drive that from a examples table. Okay, so execute there. So I'm going to keep that. That's fine. I'm going to keep that. It's the same thing. We're setting this argument. Okay, and we are then looking for, we're doing this thing here. So the modal pops up. It has a list of towns for stock take. So it's raise an error unless stock availability item title. So what am I looking? I'm looking for a town actually. I'm actually looking for location. So well, there you go. Let's call it location. Let's call it stock location. So unless stock location dot present. So I will update my error message to say that as well. And it was this one here. Stock availability item title. Just make sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's just make double sure. Questioning myself there. Stock availability item title. Yep, there's this guy here. Okay, so that's fine. So we call that stock location. So that's now been replaced throughout. And then we had the action close button. And that's, I know what that is. I closed the modal at this point, so that's okay. Let's have a look. Where's that? I can just do a double click, Command F. Let's just find it. Boom. There it is. So I might want to close that. Location underscore modal underscore close. Now you could argue I've made that slightly longer at that point. However, yeah, I think that's okay. You get the idea, right? So location modal dot close. I've just renamed my element. You'll notice I'm not checking or changing any of these at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to trust in what the recorder's actually given me for the locator strategy, but I'm just tidying and refactoring as we go. All right, so I'm going to fast forward now and go through the rest of the code and take a similar approach, and then we'll talk through what we've done. Okay, now I fast forwarded somewhat here, and I wanted to show you my kind of finalized refactored version for this webinar. Okay. So the first thing to look at is how I've now turned my scenario into a scenario outline. I've moved a lot of my data that I've been using in the test into an examples table. A couple of aspects of that table, product and postcode, I'm passing in the when step. The remainder of it I am passing here in the then step. Okay, so to do that in Cucumber, we simply extend this with the use of a table here. And then, so the table is passed through to the step, and then in order to reference values from that table, we have an opening line in this block here, table.hashes.each do, and then we call each row a row. We have a closing end statement there, and then we can refer to items from that row, i.e. the product or the postcode, by doing this. And that now becomes an argument from a table in my scenario that I can pass through to these methods. Alright, so that's the first thing to note here. Okay, examples tables, some of which being used in the when step, some of which being used in the then step. This now means that I can just add a number of different examples under here, and I can run that test with a different search term, a different postcode for the stock check, etc., etc., different email address for the form filling, a different address, etc. So that's just how we can iterate with the use of examples. So let's actually, the majority of the refactoring, let's see where this took place. So we were focusing previously on the step definition, and we saw that even though we had references to multiple page classes, which we'd been building in the initial recording of the test, we were still referring to individual elements on those page classes. So the initial refactoring we did, we took something like this. It was 3 lines of code. We made that into a single line of code, and we're now passing a product to it. So we had completed all of the when step up into the execution of the stock check. Okay, I then continued. So my add to basket was consolidated into a single method here, add product to cart, on my product details page. I'll explain this in just a second. Moving into the then step, so the beginning of the checkout. So we now have a proceed to checkout method on the product details page. That's followed via verify shipping page method on that shipping page, so making sure the page loads. You can then see where we are passing through the remainder of the data from the table into a new add shipping details method. So that's a new method which sits on the shipping page here. And then we have a simple proceed to payment method, which is also on the shipping page. And then, as in the recording of the test, we had our new payment page, and we've now got 6 methods on that payment page now. So we now have a verify payment page method. We have a verify product details method, and we are passing through an argument that you saw earlier. Verify ship to section, verify shipping method section, and select payment method, and then finally the verify the place order button. So this was the process we went through before. So I've now completed it for that entire step definition, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. Every one of them now making reference to page classes that we created in the recording, and then dedicated methods to execute user processes in a more consolidated format on a page by page basis. And what you actually find if you do this right, you end up with a step definition. And again, this is unique to Cucumber, but you can almost read through this now as somewhat of a manual testing script. So your given step is go to site, clear cookie spanner. That was something I added, by the way, just so if I keep running the test and that cookie spanner is present, then I can clear that. We'll have a look in a second. My when step, I'm then essentially searching for a product, verifying the results page, selecting the first product, verifying the product details page, setting a product amount, executing a stock check. So you can, it's like a manual test script. You can easily, even at this level, you could put this in front of someone who's reasonably familiar with the site, the application, and they would understand the series of steps in succession here that make up this idea of searching for a musical instrument. Adding to basket was fairly explanatory. It's kind of a 1-for-1 match here. So I add it to my basket is the BDD step, and I've now got add product to cart. Begin checkout. Okay, well that's much more of an overarching kind of a more inclusive process that needs to cover a bunch of stuff, right? This is our biggest step. So we proceed to checkout, we verify the shipping page, we add our shipping details, we proceed to the payment, we verify the payment page, we verify the product details, etc., etc. So at this stage, it really does read like a manual testing script. Now, if we go to the kind of lowest level now, if we start to explore some of these pages in isolation, we look at the methods we created. So these were, this was the original one that we did. I added this here. This was to deal with any cookies banners that may or may not be there. So I declared an element, called it cookies banner. That element definition, the locator, can be found there. It's a button with a text of accept cookies. So clear the banner if it exists. All right, so that's the only two things on our home page. I think then we go to results listings page. We only had two things there initially. I haven't added anything further there. I have tidied some of these elements as I go along. So I've kept, we kept the definition as we say, the locator strategy, but I might have renamed it to something more sensible so that when I then see first product.click within my select first product method, it's just more readable. It makes sense. After the results listings page, we go to product details page. So this is where it starts to expand now. So I haven't renamed every single element. Some of them I certainly have. Location modal close, that's been redefined. Stock location, and where I needed to, I debugged the test. I played it through, and if the test was failing for any reason because of a locator strategy that wasn't adequate, I've maybe then made some changes here. So this is an example of where I have a div with a class value of this to start with, and that's maybe a parent container. And actually I'm then extending that further with dot something else. In this case, I'm looking for a collection of H3 elements. It has the S here because it's pluralized. So I'm looking for any H3 elements, but I'm looking on an index basis for the first one of those. And that becomes my stock location. All right, so I think the concept of good practice element locator strategy is a topic for another session, but there was just one more. There's a slightly more convoluted one here where actually I found the this was for the stock check modal. So I found a div with a class of stock availability modal. This is where it listed all of the matching towns for the postcode. And actually, to get to the closing button in the top right hand corner, I went from here and I went dot parent. So I climbed up one level, dot parent, climbed up another level, to then climb down for dot button with a class of action close. That was the most reliable way I could find to execute that modal closure. All right, so on the product details page, we ended up with a verify PDP method that was built from two assertions, quite simply. We set the product amount, so I changed that to be an element of product count plus versus minus, +1, -1. So that's simply the plus button dot click. It made me go from 1 to 2. We execute our stock check. We're passing through a postcode there. Okay. So we've got a bunch of things happening there. We've got the click into the field, the setting of the postcode, the submission click, waiting for the modal, and then we put an assertion in here. Okay, so raise an assertion, raise an error unless the stock location, the text of it, includes Southend. So that was the way we knew that the modal was displayed, and it had returned me a set of nearby stores that actually matched with my postcode that I'd entered. Okay, we then had an add product to cart method. So again, following the approach we took before, I took out a number of lines of code and consolidated them into one add product to cart method here. I'm doing something here, so I'm setting a value here, expected price equals price dot text. So when I've added that product to cart, the element that I have on the page, which is the price, I'm extracting the text from that and setting that as a value. So you'll actually see where I'm calling this method from the step definitions. I actually declare an instance variable, which are shareable within the step definition file. So within my add product to cart, I'm returning the price. I'm setting this instance variable to be that price, which then allows me down here to pass that price through as an expected result when I'm checking the price on a different page. All right, so why don't we just have a quick look at that test running. Let's come back to our feature file here. All right, so this is now our parameterized feature file. Let's hit play. And following the method we outlined, that's really the approach that I would take. As I say, I start within the step definition, isolating blocks of code that are clearly related to a particular user process. I start to decide the methods that I'm going to need within specific page classes. I then create those methods. And where I've got 3 or 4 lines of code in the step definition, I cut them from the step definition, put them into my new method on the particular page class in question. Because it's on the page class, I remove any direct references to that page class itself within the method. That's not needed. And you can see here the data that I'm driving from the tables being passed through. There's an email address, for example, a first name, a surname, etc. The payment check, all of these. It's doing the price check here, so it's looking at the total 2399.00. It's making an assertion against my expected result. And then it's looking for various edit buttons and ship to sections, order summaries, billing details on this page, etc. All right, so that's really all there is to it. You want to make sure that certainly when you're using Cucumber, that your step definitions are nice and clean and read very easily at this level. We talked about how you pass through example table data to then be passed as an argument with a particular method here, for example, in the stock check. All right, so that's where we're passing through the postcode from the table and then using it in a text field value that we were setting. So that's a good example of how you do that. Let's look for that price example. So I captured the price here, and I then passed it through, as we say, instance variable within the step definition, which means I can then pass it through in a different step, but in the same step definition file down here. So that's a value of $2,2,399.00, I think it was. This is in my excuse me, my verify product details method here. And I'm referring to this element. Firstly, I'm checking that it's present, that there is a price by using price.present. And then I've got a step here that says, right, well, if my expected price is not the same as my price element.text, then raise an error. Okay, so just checking for consistency there, that the thing I put in my basket is actually what I'm being charged for on the page. Yeah, and then just finally, so on the shipping page, here's a slightly more complicated method. This is where the rest of the data was being passed to the add shipping details. I've renamed some of these elements, so an email text field, a first name field, a last name field, an address line 1 field. Down here I just used a send keys method, so when I entered the first line of the address, it pre-populated some options for me, and I just used the send keys down like a user might do, and then pressed enter in order to make that selection, and then continued to set my phone number, for example. And just finally, this is an example of where you can set some default arguments within a method. Really useful in Ruby. What this means is that I can call this method without passing an email argument. I do need an email because I'm looking to try and set that email here. But I can call this method without passing this because this method is declared with a default value. So if it doesn't receive a new email when it's being called, then it will use this default value here as the email to set in this second line of code within that method. Okay, so that's the shipping page. So we ended up with 1, 2, 3 methods there. Results listings page, we looked at that. Shipping page, product details page. So the best indication of how much this has been refactored, I think, is within the steps themselves, because you see this was considerably longer at the time. Much more consolidated, easy to understand, easy to see the data that's being passed through. So I think in summary, we've ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 page classes. So we first built those page classes when we recorded the test. And now we've ended up with certainly a single method on the home page, 2 methods on the results listings page, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the product details page, 5 on the product details page. We've got 1, 2, 3 methods on the shipping page, and then we ended up with 1, 2, 3, 6 methods on the payment page. So that's how I would go from recording a first test using a typical test recorder. In this case, we're using TestEvolve Flare to do the recording because it gives us that nice BDD/Cucumber integration. And yeah, in summary, in conclusion, it allows me to build code quickly. But I'm going to have to get my hands dirty in terms of refactoring the code to make this reusable for someone else. All right. Because now someone else is looking at a flow and they do something on the results listings page. If I've committed this, check this into version control, the rest of my team have access to a select first product method on the results listings page. The rest of my team then have access to execute a stock check on the product details page. So I have to name these in such a way that make it very, very obvious, what it is these methods do. The types of data that they need to be passed, etc., etc. So there you go. So that's it. I think, thank you very much for joining. I'm not going to go into more detail right now. We're going to do a follow-up on this for JavaScript. We'll do JavaScript and TypeScript maybe in a single session. And then we'll look at some Python examples as well and some upcoming webinars. So thanks for joining tonight. If you do want to evaluate a fully featured version of the TestEvolve solution, then please go to testevolve.com/try as a 30-day fully featured trial available for you to do exactly this and get you up and running in no time at all. And we have paid versions of the product, of course, but we are forever committed to a free version of our product. So why not evaluate, see what works for you, get up and running with some Cucumber BDD based test automation in a very, very short space of time. This was clearly Ruby focused. As I say, we will look at JavaScript, TypeScript examples, and we'll look at some Python examples in due course as well. But thank you very much. Until next time, we'll see you then.